Hello, and welcome to the very first Bottom of the Barrel mini video cast.
Hello, I'm Chris,
I'm Darren.
and I'm going to try not to look at the screen. I'm trying to look at the camera, not the screen. We'll
It's
see how this
hard.
works.
It's hard
Yeah.
not to look at our beautiful faces all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So, what we're going to do on this podcast is actually one of our loyal listeners, Jay, has requested.
I don't think he's a lawyer.
He might
Yeah,
be.
well, I don't know. Okay. That's
One of our loyal listeners, Jay, has requested a video to just show him how we actually do our tastings when we do them. And so that's exactly what we're going to do here today in just a few minutes. And we'll go ahead and get started then.
All right, so we're going to be tasting, see if you can see that in focus, some old Rip Van Winkle 10-year. This is this last year's release.
It's a very nice one. So first thing is selecting a cup to taste from. And one thing you don't want to do your tastings from is a plastic solo cup. No red and blue solo cups for this. You can use a regular old-fashioned glass, or you could use a wide shot glass is okay, or you could use one of these Glencairn glasses, which are specifically designed for whiskey tasting. Theoretically, they're bulbous at the bottom. It allows the aroma to come out, and then it concentrates it with the slightly lower diameter end there.
And a lot of people say that these are great for tasting, but not good for drinking. Personally, I tend to drink out of a highball glass if I'm just going to sit down with a bourbon, but these work well for tasting.
I generally drink from an old-fashioned, or a double old-fashioned glass, actually. So with that out of the way, go ahead and pour. Now, if you're just doing a tasting, you're not pouring a whole drink. All you need is maybe a tablespoon max. It doesn't take much at all, just a snippet. And another thing is, if you're just tasting one bourbon, of course, you know what you're tasting. But if you're going to do a blind tasting, it's good to have a friend randomize it and pour it into the cups while you're out of the room. And so you don't know what you're tasting, and then make your little notes as you taste. And then you can go back and he'll tell you this was that one and so forth, and you can figure out which one you like best that way. So it's good to have another friend handy to randomize it for you.
Who's good at keeping secrets and won't laugh when you like one that is actually terrible.
Yeah, haha.
Yeah.
You liked Colonel Lee the best.
Yeah, that's oh, I left my little water thing. Let me grab that real quick.
Okay. So that brings us to our next point here, and that is adding water for your tasting or not adding water. Chris generally doesn't like to add water to his. I do.
I add a few drops most of the time if it's over 90 proof.
Yeah, the higher the proof, I think the more important it is to add a little bit of water. And there's a couple ways to do that. You can use a little cuvette,
So
such
I
as
use
that,
a little ceramic.
full of water there. Or something I've just discovered tonight, actually, is to take your finger, put it in your glass of water, and then just drop a couple drops into your glass. That works well too. I've also discovered that an empty bottle of Frank's hot sauce
It's a really good idea.
can deliver just a couple drops of water at a time, and that's perfect. And so I use that at home. Obviously, rinse out the hot sauce bottle first. But there we go. We've added a couple drops, both of us.
Shaking it here. There's a lot of people who will say you need to do, a minute for every year that it's been in the wood. So if you had a 10-year-old bourbon like this one, you'd let it sit out for 10 minutes before you drank it.
That's silliness.
I like to get a little bit of air into it, particularly if it's a new bottle. So this is why I'm swirling it around, just to get a little bit of air exchange.
And also, so we just added some water. Now, what does the water do? Well, we covered that in our first podcast, I believe. But just to briefly go over it again, so the water is something like 6 times smaller than a molecule of ethanol. And what the water does is get in between the alcohol molecules and separate them.
I think we called that the room for Jesus on the last podcast.
Yeah, no,
the first
Holy Spirit.
Holy Spirit, there you go, yeah.
So it's like a high school dance. The teacher comes along, puts a balloon between you, then you're dancing at an appropriate distance. So what that does is it spreads out the alcohol. It dilutes it a little bit, so you lose a lot of the alcohol burn, if not all of the burn. And then it also lets the other aromatic molecules free up, and then they can, especially when you swirl it, come out and hit your nose instead of being stuck in there.
And a good experiment is to take something you know you like, try it with no water, put a few drops in, smell it, see how the nose changes, see how the taste changes, etc.
Yeah. So experiment with how you want to do it best. So Chris usually doesn't add a lot of water. I will almost always add some water. Although I do like to take a little taste at some point with no water just to see what we're dealing with too. But now we're prepared. We've waited a little bit, let it open up. What's next?
The aroma's next. I always hold mine by the bottom because I try not to change the temperature. Also, the water we use in between tastings has no ice. Try and keep it room temperature. You can use branch water, which I guess technically we're Jessamine County water here. So
yeah.
Branch water being the river that runs underneath Lexington.
Louisville tap is good too.
Yeah.
If you happen to have a limestone filtered spring on your property, well,
that'd be better. Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
So we get a smell. I do it sideways, mostly because I've stuck my nose straight in too many times and gotten nothing but alcohol.
You don't want to do that. If that happens, let it rest.
Yeah.
Let your nose rest for a little while. Remember, taste is a large part smell. So if you've singed your smell buds, then you want to give it a little time.
And it takes, I mean, the way we describe stuff is not very sophisticated on the show. I'll say things like corn a lot, woody, moonshine, just kind of generic terms. You come up with your own. There's that wheel we put out on the Facebook page a while back. Maybe I'll repost it with this. It kind of can help you.
That will also be on our website,
yeah,
separate from Facebook.
Sort of put a name to what you think you're smelling, tasting, etc.
So that helps. And you get better at tasting them and identifying flavors and smells as you go along and do it. Of course, like anything else, it takes a lot of practice. But
which is terrible. Gosh,
it's enjoyable
it's
from the very first time, yeah.
Gee, I mean, having to drink bourbon a lot, awful.
Oh, it's just awful.
So then you smell it, you describe it however you will. I mean, Old Rip's fantastic. It's usually 107 proof, so that's why I put a little water in mine.
So pretty good high proof there. And then taste it. So take a little sip, put it on your tongue. I like to put it as far back as I can get it.
I do the Kentucky Chew a little bit. People call that where you kind of smack. It helps me get a little bit of air in it, get out some of the lighter, sweeter flavors. Kind of a gross thing I like to do is to suck air in through my teeth when I've got some of the bourbon up there. And that there's this very specific barrel note that comes out when I do that can help me age it if I don't know what it is. It'll taste a lot oakier the older it is.
They don't carry IDs. Very good. So you just take a few sips each time and make your notes, get your thoughts about what's going on, and then you've tasted it. And if you're doing a comparison tasting rather than just one at a time, cleanse your palate. Yeah. Get some water. Really rinse it all out, and you can either swallow it or get a spit bucket like your wine tasting or whatever else.
And something fun to do is if you have a bourbon, you say, "Oh, I really like that finish. Seems to have a long finish, big finish, etc." Drink some of it. Don't eat anything for half hour or so. See how long it takes for that to go away. I've heard people say up to half hour, something like that. You'll still get a little bit of that oaky woodiness.
And that's the body. So a full-bodied drink, whether it's wine or whiskey or whatever, is going to linger in your mouth for a longer time. Whereas a lesser-bodied drink will go away quicker.
Well,
bourbon tends to be pretty full-bodied. Yeah. In general.
Now that we've sufficiently scared you with our beautiful faces, we'll get to drinking. Put this up soon. Happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday to Chris. He is 29 for the second time.
Yeah, for the second time.
This weekend.
Yeah. So.
All right. Give us your comments and feedback on our website or our Facebook site, and we hope to hear from you soon.
All right. Cheers.